There we go. All right, so good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Really excited to be here with you today to talk a little bit about SNAP employment and training and some of the opportunities that are available to the Community Action Network with this awesome program. So as always, as we always do, we want to take a moment to ground ourselves in the promise of community action and remember why we're doing this work. And the promise of community action reads that community action changes people's lives, embodies the spirit of hope, improves communities, and makes America a better place to live. We care about the entire community, and we are dedicated to helping people help themselves and each other. So we are really excited in the spirit of that mission that the National Community Action Partnership recently received a new grant from the USDA, the Food and Nutrition Services, the Office of Employment and Training, for us to do some really special and focused work on SNAP employment and training to help third-party providers, community-based organizations like community action agencies, and in our case, specifically community action agencies, to come on board as what are called third-party providers to help expand access to SNAP employment and training services all across the country. And so this grant, we're one of 4 national grantees who were awarded. It's going to be a 3-year grant that's going to allow us to offer all kinds of great training and technical assistance to help build the network's capacity to engage in this new program. And if you're here and you're going, but I don't know what SNAP E&T is, don't worry, we're going to cover that in just a few short minutes. And I just need to say a big thank you to our funder at FNS for the support of this project. And I want to name that this project is not being done only by the National Community Action Partnership, but that we have assembled a really great team of friends and experts who are going to walk alongside us in this work to help support community action agencies to expand their capacity to become E&T providers. So I want to take a moment. I don't think I actually introduced myself, so I want to say hi, y'all. I'm Mary Beth Schnaber, RevRev. I'm the Director of Organizational Capacity Building here at the partnership, and I have the honor of serving as the project director for this work, and I'm going to get to be involved in this work for the coming few years. For some perspective, I actually used to be a state administrator and had some involvement in expanding SNAP employment and training actually in a state. So I kind of know what it takes to stand up these programs. And I'm really excited to bring this opportunity to the broader National Community Action Network and work with all of you. But as I said, the National Community Action Partnership is not the only entity that's involved in this. We have great friends and partners who are with us, one of which is the Seattle Jobs Initiative. SJI is really a recognized national expert on SNAP E&T. And I'm going to pass to that team to say hello and introduce themselves.
Thanks, Mary Beth. Yes, I'm Nick Cott. I'm one of the consultants with SJI. Just briefly, we do a lot of work in SNAP employment and training, work across the country, and have done that for a number of years. And we're really looking forward to being part of this project and working with all of you and helping you understand SNAP E&T and hopefully take advantage of the opportunities the program offers.
And my name's Kathy Metcalf, and I'm also a consultant with SJI who will be working on this project. Looking forward to working with all of you and exploring the opportunities of SNAP E&T and helping you potentially stand up your programs.
Awesome, and we're really excited to work with SJI in this way. Also want to name that we have our friends at the American Public Human Services Association, or APHSA, who are joining us in this work. They've been good friends and partners to us in many parts of our work at the National Partnership, and we're just really excited to continue our collaboration in this way. So, Andrew, I'll pass over to you to say hello.
Hi, everyone. Very excited to be here and partnering with Mary Beth on this project. My name is Andrew Schramm. I'm with APHSA, and we'll provide some perspective and connections with state agencies to make sure that the connection with you works and that we have a good idea of what that state plan looks like and how you can fit into it. So very excited again to be involved.
And y'all, I would be remiss not to mention that this partnership between SJI, APHSA, and NCAP is not new. We have been working collaboratively for the last 3 years, actually, on another SNAP E&T grant that was awarded through APHSA. And so this work that we're embarking on is kind of an expansion of what we've done before. We're just really excited to be able to continue our collaboration and deepen our work in this space and deepen our partnerships with our friends around the table here. So our time together today, we hope to do a few quick things with everyone. We want to give you an overview of what SNAP employment and training actually is, how it works, and what a third-party partnership is. We also hope to provide you a little bit of perspective from a current SNAP employment and training provider. And anyone who's a current provider on the call, we will welcome your insights and your thoughts as well, because you kind of know the magic of E&T once you get going. We'll also talk a little bit about some of the supports that the National Community Action Partnership with our friends here are going to be able to offer you in the upcoming year, and really over the next 3 years. We'll have some time for Q&A and we'll close out. So with that, I'm going to pass over to Nick and our friends at SJI to talk to us a little bit about what E&T looks like.
Yeah, thanks again, Mary Beth. Right, so I want to give you all sort of a brief overview of SNAP employment and training, hit some of the highlights, the key elements. And I think this project really, this is kind of a starting point in the project, and there'll be many opportunities to learn more about all of this as we move forward and really how it applies to your organization and where you are and your particular state. So, so as we've sort of talked about, SNAP employment and training is administered by the USDA. SNAP E&T is the employment and training program that goes along with SNAP, the food nutrition benefit. The USDA provides a great deal of money annually across the country to operate SNAP E&T, and it serves a good number of people. However, there's opportunity to increase the amount of money that's available and increase the number of people served. And that's one of the things that we want to talk about in this project, and talk a bit about how the funding, allows you to do some of that. It's important to understand that all states, whether you realize this or not, are required to operate a SNAP E&T program, but there's a lot of variation from state to state in how they do this. And that's going to be an important aspect to figuring this out, for you and for where you are. And so, that's one of the things to keep in mind as we go through all of this. And it'll be an important question to take a look at. But we, between APHSA, SGI, and NCAP, we've got a good handle on a lot of the states and what's being offered and where the opportunities are. So, next slide, Meredith. So, important question. So, who's actually eligible for SNAP E&T? So, it's for people who are on SNAP, and technically speaking, it's for people who are receiving SNAP in the month that they are actually participating in a component in E&T program, and that'll make more sense as we talk more about this as we move forward. But it's not for people who are on SNAP and TANF. So people on TANF oftentimes also are eligible for SNAP. So if you're on SNAP and TANF, then you would probably most likely participate in the employment training services that are associated with TANF. So on SNAP but not on TANF, and it's also for individuals who are able and interested in working upon program completion. So, individuals that want to go from unemployed to employed or underemployed to better employment. So it really is a workforce program. That's, work is the ultimate goal for participation. Next slide. So let's talk a little bit about the funding, and again, this gets into some more detailed information, if you will. But the USDA, to fund SNAP E&T, has what I would consider like two buckets, two mechanisms around funding. They have what are referred to in the SNAP E&T world as 100% funds. These are formula-based grants that go to every state. They don't really add up to relatively very much when it comes right down to it. But these are dollars that states receive to carry out an E&T program. Typically, they're used to fund sort of the administrative capacity at the state level. Every once in a while, they'll be utilized to actually fund services or a potential third-party provider. But by and large, these stay at the state, and they support the capacity of the state, which is actually really important because you want the state to have good capacity to operate these programs. The other bucket of funding is what is referred to the 50% reimbursement funds or 50-50 funds. And this is really where the opportunity is. And we'll sort of briefly describe how this works. But what this reimbursement funding mechanism looks like is it is tied to organizations like yourselves or states, if you will, who are utilizing non-federal dollars to deliver employment and training services to people on SNAP. So if you are an organization that does that, you don't have to do all of that, but it does that to a certain degree, then you have at least from the fiscal perspective, the potential to be a third-party partner. And the way that reimbursement works is for every dollar, non-federal dollar you use to deliver services to eligible participants, you get a 50% reimbursement. So that money comes on top of the money you've already spent. And that reimbursement, it's a federal reimbursement, federal dollars, but it loses its federal identity when it comes to your organization. So that might sound like kind of a mouthful, kind of a lot, but really this is where the opportunity is, because it's been our experience that are a number of organizations across the country that are delivering good quality employment and training services to individuals that are on SNAP. They're doing that with non-federal dollars, but they're not an E&T provider. And so part of this project is understanding, if that's what you're doing, how could you become a partner in your state and start to receive this reimbursement money. So next slide, Mary Beth. So this is really kind of just another slide that explains what I just talked about. And again, it has to do with having a contract as a third party partner. You contract with the state or your county or potentially an intermediary, and you are serving individuals that are on SNAP, not on TANF. They're enrolled in your program. The state's confirmed all of that. You're using non-federal dollars. There's an invoice process set up. You submit an invoice, you get reimbursed, and this money comes back to your organization, and you can then reinvest it in your program as non-federal dollars and continue to draw down this reimbursement. So it's this nice cycle that you can sort of tap into. And what I can tell you is, as a provider in your state, for example, each year you have the option typically to grow your budget, to increase your budget. It's not necessarily capped. So there's potential to start small and grow and get bigger and bigger as time goes on. So we've seen some real good growth and some real good utilization of this program over time by organizations, very similar to yours. Next slide. So here's just another sort of diagram that kind of sort of lays out how all of this works. So SNAP Employment Training, it's a federal workforce program administered by the USDA, not by DOL, but by the SNAP agency. The federal dollars and approval all goes to the state. The state does an annual plan, which I think Andrew mentioned it just a bit ago. And in that plan, they list out their third-party partners, among other things. But ultimately, the program is the responsibility of the state, but the state can utilize partners in their community, third-party partners in their community, to contract with and to carry out these services. So again, a third-party partner, one way to look at that is that's an organization, maybe like yourselves, operating in the community, contracted with the state, helping the state really sort of carry out and deliver their E&T program. And you are most likely bringing forward your non-federal dollars, your services, your ability to serve and engage SNAP recipients, as a part of your program. So that's kind of the way it sort of lays out. So you get better understanding. So let's go into some of the services, because this is a big piece. So in the E&T world, employment training services are referred to as components. So that's just something you kind of have to get used to, thinking in terms of components. And FNS has laid out this group of components that they sort of utilize and see as their E&T program. Much of this is it should be very familiar to many of you. So when they think of components, they think of job search training, supervised job search, those types of activities, education, which really is sort of a broad range of activities, adult basic ed to community college programs to sector-based training programs, credential programs. That's a sort of a big bucket. Workfare, which is not typically something a third-party partner would do, but something that you may be aware of in your community. That's where people spend time doing work activities to stay eligible for their SNAP benefit. In fact, you could potentially have people doing workfare as a volunteer at your organization. That does happen in some spots, but that's separate from being a third-party partner. There's work experience programming that they're looking at. These are more structured, intentional, work experience programs where people are learning specific skills or general skills. They're practicing those skills in a work environment of some kind, and there's ideally or typically some connection to a particular sector or an employer or group of employers as a part of that. Self-employment is an option. So if you do some type of small business or self-employment training as a part of your organization, that's a potential component for you. And then job retention. Job retention is really that time once somebody gets a job that you're supporting them in sort of transitioning successfully into the job, retaining the job, and that typically goes for about 90 days. So when you think about these list of components and you think about your organization, if you were to be an E&T provider, a third-party partner, you wouldn't have to provide all of these components, but you'd want to provide at least one or two beyond job retention. So looking at this list, you'd kind of see what matches up to what you do. And this is the type of stuff that through our technical assistance and training and these cohorts activities, we can help you figure that out. We've got some good sort of tools to kind of help sort of match up what you do with what SNAP E&T is looking for. Next slide. So another big important aspect to E&T services is case management. In fact, there's an expectation that each of those components that I just looked at includes some degree of case management, that they're supported with case management. And so this doesn't mean you actually have to have a job title of case manager, but you'd want to be able to carry out some of the case management functions that FNS has identified. And I don't think this is an uncommon thing for many of you to do. So things like, intake assessments, to kind of look at people's, work history and interests and goals and those types of things. Individual service plans that help people move towards an employment goal. Progress monitoring, progress notes, that type of thing. And then coordination with other service providers, other resources in the community. So these are the types of things that go along with SNAP E&T, those components as far as case management is concerned. And like every program, documentation, being able to sort of tell your story of how you work with a participant through your progress notes or your documentation is always an important aspect of this. But so you're sort of like checking the boxes to see if this would work for your organization. Do you provide some of those components that we just went through? Do you offer some type of case management services? So those are the things you want to sort of be thinking about for your organization. Next slide. Okay, and then another important aspect are what FNS or SNAP E&T considers participant reimbursements or supportive services. And what this means in the E&T world are, those types of services, those types of things that people need to be successful in entering in an employment training program, completing it, and then moving into employment and retaining employment. So these are the basics, things like dependent care, transportation, books, supplies, clothing, personal safety items. These are just examples. I mean, there's a whole other, list of things that sort of fall into this category. But it's really, those types of things that are needed. Oftentimes, might be considered like small budget items, small ticket items, but from the perspective of your participants, they can mean, the difference between success and not succeeding. Because, if somebody needs $50 for a pair of boots and they don't have $50 for a pair of boots to enter a program, then, what does that mean for them? So how this sort of works with E&T is if this is something that your organization is offering and you're doing this with non-federal dollars, then that would be something you could get reimbursed for. So if you're spending $100 on clothing for somebody to get a job, that's non-federal money, then you could be reimbursed for an additional $50 on top of that. So that's kind of some of the ways that that this works. And works nicely. So again, another thing to sort of check off and think about. Next slide. So thinking more along the lines of like third part, whether you're a third party partner or not, or if this all lines up for you, I think a helpful way to think about this as we sort of look at SNAP E&T is thinking of your organization and thinking about I think 4 buckets in particular. Who are you serving? Are you serving people that are on SNAP or likely eligible for SNAP? It doesn't mean everybody in your organization has to be on SNAP, but a good number, a good percentage. Do you have non-federal funds? And again, not all your funds have to be non-federal, but do you have enough to kind of make this work for you? Are you providing some of the services that were listed out in that list of components? Again, not all of them, but 2 or 3 at least, maybe 2 plus job retention, something like that. And then do you have the capacity to operate as a third party partner? Can working with the state, reporting data, collecting data, submitting an invoice, having a budget to work from, those types of things. And if you have a federal contract or a state contract already, that's probably a good indicator that you probably have that capacity. If you don't, that doesn't mean you don't have the capacity, but you could, it's still that you could still definitely be able to handle this once you have a sort of an idea of what that capacity looks like. The other thing in this diagram that is important is kind of the outer circle, the state context and priorities. So what is actually happening or available where you live, where you operate. And this is something that, again, as I said before, between APHSA, Mary Beth's team and SGI, we can help with to understand, who would you need to talk to in your state or your county, let's say. What does the opportunity look like where you are? Is it an immediate opportunity? Is it a longer term opportunity? Sort of getting that sort of context. That's a very important aspect to kind of doing your own feasibility assessment, figuring out if this is for you or not. Next slide. Okay, so talked a lot about how SNAP E&T, I think, benefits a community action agency, helps you carry out your mission, which is all really, really important. We talked a lot about funding, and funding is important to carrying out your mission and strengthening your services and being able to serve more people. But I think one of the ways to look at this that's important is how SNAP E&T benefits the people you serve. So first of all, SNAP is helpful in addressing food insecurity. And, we know that if people are food insecure, their likelihood of being successful in employment training program goes down at least a bit, or maybe a lot. So addressing food insecurity is a really important element. And then helping people develop the skills needed for employment, not just maybe go from not a job to, sort of an entry-level type of job. But really develop the types of skills needed for wage progression or our career pathway. And then just the support that's available through the supportive services and the case management, and all of the other things that kind of the wraparound services that go along with SNAP employment and training. So anyway, these are the benefits. So to the program, and we can talk more about this, as we go on. But I think many of you probably, are aware of the importance of sort of meeting a lot of basic needs like food insecurity, and how that can really provide a good foundation for people to move forward. So that's kind of the overview of SNAP E&T that I can provide. So Mary Beth, I can turn it back over to you. I think we might be waiting for Brianna. So
all is well. So we thank you, Nick, for that really good overview of SNAP E&T. I want to encourage everyone to put any questions or thoughts you have in the chat. We'll also have some more time for Q&A if you're still kind of chewing on some things. Want to offer up just a few perspectives about being a provider from the community action perspective. And I know some of you on the call have actually, I'm sure some of you on the call have been SNAP employment and training providers. I would welcome your perspectives as well at this time, but a couple things I want to be sure I share with you. One is that community action agencies make fabulous third-party providers. When Nick was showing us some of the components that are required to be successful, we have those components, right? We have capacity. We have people. We serve people. We serve people who are eligible for SNAP or on SNAP as part of our model. We do have non-federal funding. In some cases, what we see is agencies might have to think creatively about how they structure their program to align all of those different pieces. But for the agencies that have been able to figure this out, I think they would tell you that being able to offer the services and then receive that reimbursement of 50% of their efforts has allowed them to also grow their capacity to do more employment and training work in their communities. So I think a lot of agencies would tell you it can take a little while to get started. There's a learning curve with SNAP E&T. We always recommend that people start small with SNAP E&T. But that doesn't mean you have to stay small. Start small, do some learning, and you'll see that there's a lot of real alignment to help support your mission, and allows you to grow your resources to support your mission. Yeah. Go ahead, Nick.
I was just going to add just that, my experience with community action agencies has been that what's really important is that there's so much more than just employment training that's offered through your organizations, and that sort of full spectrum of support services, wraparound services, other types of assistance really is so helpful to the people participating in E&T. It meets all these other basic needs that just makes the possibility of success go up. I mean, I think of more standalone programs, workforce programs that do great workforce work, but they don't have the full spectrum of opportunities that a community action agency typically offers. I mean, that's been my experience. So you bring a lot to the table, which is important.
Yeah. I want to see if anyone else on the call who has had some experience with SNAP E&T has any perspectives that they would like to add. And I'm just scanning to see if anyone's going to unmute, but and if you don't have any perspectives to add right now, that's okay. But would welcome your perspectives as well. All right, well, we might come back to this in a little bit too, because I know sometimes it takes me a minute to find my words, so we'll give you a few minutes to think about that. Go ahead, Kathy.
I was just going to add that a lot of what this project, and we'll talk a little bit about it, but a lot of what we do in this project is to help you look at what you're doing and help you see how it really shouldn't be adding a lot to your plate, because you're already doing all the things that are required for the program. And so we can help you kind of analyze and look at the feasibility of adding the program into your set of tools for the people that you're working with.
Yeah, Kathy, that's such a great segue to, I mean, what is this project that NCAP has? It is all about exactly what Kathy's talking about, you know, through this partnership, we're going to seek to support all of you and those who are interested in engaging in SNAP E&T to offer these services. And we recognize that different folks are at different places in their journey. And so we have different ways that you can engage with our national project if you want to become an E&T provider, or if you're currently a provider, to be able to expand and deepen some of your work. And so our project has 3 components. We have a national training project, we have a new provider cohort, and we have a current provider learning community that I'm just going to talk through really briefly and introduce you to. So the first component of our project includes a national training component, which is going to do things exactly like this. Bring you information, bring the entire Community Action Network information about SNAP employment and training, and some of the learnings from SNAP employment and training, and our efforts through webinars, through conference sessions. We're going to be releasing tools and resources to help community action agencies get familiar with E&T. The other thing, and Nick and Kathy, we kind of started to speak to this, is that E&T looks very, very different in different places. We recognize that models look different between agencies. Even within the same state, models can look very, very different. So we want to take an opportunity to identify some of those models and put out some case studies, so that if you're having a hard time picturing what would this look like for me, you could check out some case studies and learn from peers who are already doing this. And you all are going, you missed a square on the slide. I did not. One of the other really awesome things that we're going to be releasing here by the end of the year is an e-course that will allow folks to kind of go through and learn about E&T more in depth at their own pace, to kind of determine if E&T might be a good match for them. It can also be a great tool for agencies who you know, are starting an E&T journey, and you're trying to kind of increase the knowledge within your agency of what E&T looks like and some of the requirements are. That e-course, all of the things that are on the slide are available to the entire Community Action Network at no cost, because we have this amazing grant through the USDA and FNS. So, and through the capacity of our amazing partners with SJI and APHSA. So be on the lookout for tons of stuff along these lines. It's going to be coming out nationally. I would say that these are more of our light touch kinds of services. And so, you know, this is like, if you're not quite sure if you're ready to engage, you need to do some learning, you can engage with us through this mechanism. So, also want to name that we will have a new provider cohort learning model. So this is for folks who are not yet SNAP employment and training providers, and they feel ready, that they're ready to commit to becoming a provider within roughly the next 9 to 12 months. Through this opportunity, if you choose to engage in this cohort, what you will receive is some very structured and intensive training and technical assistance that you're going to have through a monthly cohort engagement that we think will begin roughly February or March of next year and run through November. That's going to include an opportunity for you to receive in-depth individual training and technical assistance to help you learn about E&T and to support you in developing and launching your E&T model in a way that makes sense for your community action agency and your community. You will have that individual T&TA from our experts at SJI, through our friends at APHSA, at NCAP, and through peer community action SNAP E&T providers who can share their expertise and knowledge with you. One of the focuses that we have in this project in particular is on rural and frontier communities, because we recognize some of the real challenges that we have with employment in general in those communities, and then employment services in some of those communities. And so if you're in a rural or frontier community and you're thinking, I want to become an E&T provider, we're going to have some curated and specialized resources specifically for you to help you engage in this cohort. That being said, you know, if you're on this call and you're like, but I'm an urban CAP or I'm a suburban CAP, we still want to talk to you and we still want to engage. So we welcome everyone who's interested, but we do have a specific focus on rural and frontier communities. And we think that roughly, if you wanted to commit to the new provider cohort, we think it takes about 4 to 5 hours a month between kind of regular monthly calls with the cohort, the intensive training and technical assistance, and some of the other homework that you're going to be doing to become an E&T provider anyway. I want to say, if you're becoming an E&T provider, you're going to spend that time anyway, so you might as well do it with us and make good use of your time. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about how you can join the cohort in just a little bit here. One of the other things that we're really excited about is the opportunity to offer a current provider learning community, because we recognize it's not just about becoming a provider. That's not where the finish line is. Then you actually have to offer those services that you've developed in your model, right? And you know, we are seeking to really leverage peer learning and create spaces for community action agencies to connect and share what they've learned about E&T through our learning community. We're going to convene these current providers on a quarterly basis to learn best practices from each other and from our experts. Some of our focuses within the current provider cohort is building E&T capacity for expansion, deepening your equity practices, and really centering customer voice in your E&T services. One of the other really cool aspects of our current provider learning community is that we will give those who participate an opportunity to serve as a peer expert and help provide training and technical assistance to other community action agencies in the new provider cohort. That avenue, I want to say, you know, we believe deeply in recognizing and compensating expertise, and we will compensate agencies who engage in training and technical assistance to other agencies through this project. That is part of our model. So we are really excited about that. So that's an overview of the kind of training and technical assistance that we plan to provide. I want to take a minute and recognize that someone has joined us, Brianna O'Connor from Neighborhood House, who is a current SNAP E&T provider. And I wanted to see, Brianna, if you could give us a few words of wisdom about what it's like to be an E&T provider, and any advice you have for folks on the call.
Thank you, and apologize for joining late, but good to see and be with you all. I am Brianna. I work with Neighborhood House in Seattle, King County. We have been a SNAP E&T provider for a number of years, over 10. And we have really found that for when we have any kind of local funds that are either totally flexible or are focused on the similar type of goals of employment and training, that first of all, we've been able to sort of double our money, so to speak, and expand our capacity to serve community members. And for us, that's made a lot of sense. We've changed our approach over the years, but we've been able to either focus on particular populations. In Seattle, we had a focus for quite a while on serving individuals experiencing homelessness with our SNAP E&T program. We've also had periods of time where we've been able to focus on collaboration with college programs and helping folks enter different career pathway training programs, which is always a cool opportunity of partnership with SNAP E&T, is partnering with colleges and helping folks get into training. As you know, funding landscapes change. Our E&T program has also changed over the years. We currently have a 2 FTE program. We've had much larger in the past and sometimes smaller, just depending. So I think our contract now is around $300,000 in terms of our full SNAP E&T program. And we're kind of looking at different creative ways to perhaps expand that a little bit in the next year. And I think that's another cool part is just that you can be a bit creative with the match funding and seeing how you can kind of build a whole program, perhaps when you get a bit of a smaller contribution that you can then kind of maximize and leverage. It doesn't come without, some cumbersome processes, of course. We are dealing with not the best in technical systems in terms of the database we have to use and things like that, and paperwork and processes, but it hasn't made it not worth it for us at this point. I mean, once we kind of learn the flow and the steps in our state, it's certainly made a lot of sense. And in general, it's just helped leverage way more resources for our whole region. The more providers are participating in terms of just expanding the amount of resources for job seekers, and that part, of course, that we're very big fans of.
That's awesome, and we really appreciate hearing from you, Brianna, and kind of that perspective, right? Of, your model has changed, but it's it's grown, it's modified as needed, kind of as the landscape changes, and the point about, like, you're able to expand what's available to your community, right? Like, SNAP E&T is kind of a magical program in that it can grow your resource base while you're fulfilling your mission, right? And some of the work that you're already looking to do. So if that doesn't convince you to become an E&T provider, I don't know what will. But I want to say thank you to Brianna. And I want to pause here before we go ahead and see what kind of questions do folks have? Do you have any comments? What's kicking around for folks right now as it pertains to this project in E&T?
Brianna, can you tell us how many people you're serving in your E&T program each year for that $300,000 that you get $150,000 of reimbursement on?
Great question. I want to see if I can do this in my head. We'll double check after if I can in a minute. But I believe each of our 2 staff members are enrolling approximately 30 people each year, so maybe 60-ish new participants. And then we'll have some additional participants who maybe are enrolled in the previous year, who we're still serving, etc. And everyone kind of in different phases of the program and different levels of engagement, and also not all at the same time, right? Like over the course
of course.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we haven't met, but I'm from SJI, so I'm asking these questions. They're
loaded
name,
questions,
so
Yeah.
So forgive me. So your 2 FTEs, are they funded through your reimbursement funds at this point?
Yeah, we we really kind of, it's 50-50 in terms of our match funding and how our reimbursement. And we're using funds from King County Housing Authority and from contributions from Boeing Foundation and other kind of foundation contributions to round out that program currently.
And at the beginning, you didn't have those funds to fund your FTEs, but you were able to build that up as your program grew.
That's
right. Be able to fund those positions.
Right. And especially because, like, with foundation contributions, not necessarily predictable exactly what that will be every year, or if they're going to be coming every year, and that amount has varied year to year. Sometimes it's 50,000, sometimes it's 90,000, sometimes it's 75. But with that, with the matching, we make that a full program, including the full FTE and support services and other types of, so that it's a fully funded program.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Brianna,
leading questions.
Yeah. I have another leading question, Brianna. So I'm from SGI as well. So you have a chance every year then, when the state does their annual SNAP E&T plan, to kind of reset your budget and what you're going to do as far as E&T goes, right? So if you have a change in your funding, you can dial it back or build it up, which I think is an opportunity that a lot of funding programs don't really offer. It's it's either this or nothing. So
yeah, that's totally right. And even if something changes significantly mid-year, we usually are able to make a modification, say, hey, we got this $20,000 contribution, we want to add that into our program and increase the size of our contract. So, and depending, oftentimes we've been able to do that, or even if we've had to decrease it slightly. But and the process, I would say, for renewal every year comes early enough too, that you have time to kind of plan what's going to likely be realistic, and then if something changes, you can revisit and make a modification as needed. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I don't know if we've said it enough. In case you missed it, federally, there's no cap on 50/50 reimbursement. And so really what the limiting factor for a lot of CAAs and all entities engaged in 50/50 is really how much of the match can they bring, and then kind of their own capacity. So, you know, if you've got a lot of capacity, if you have a lot of non-federal funds, if you have a good number of SNAP eligible people in your community and that you're serving, you can really generate a lot of revenue for your services and grow your revenue base for your services. So I'm taking a peek at time, and I want to be cognizant of everyone's time. And I want to say, if this conversation has got you excited, if you're thinking, man, I want to learn more about E&T, I really want to be in that cohort, or I want to be on the list of agencies for that cohort, or the current provider cohort, we have an interest form that we've prepared. Our application is not open just yet, but you can fill out this interest form and let us know, you know, kind of how you think you'd like to engage in the coming months. We anticipate being able to open our applications, you know, towards the end of 2023, early 2024. As I said, the cohorts will really kick off in February or March of next year. But in the meantime, if you want to have a conversation, you know, Dick talked about understanding your state kind of context and perspective. We're happy to have those conversations with you now. And help you to learn a little bit more about that context, or reflect on if E&T is a good match for you. So I just want to say, it says it in the form, you know, the form is not any kind of like firm commitment. You're not signing up for anything necessarily. You're just saying, keep me informed as the project moves forward, and let us know how you want to engage, okay? And we'd be happy to have any kind of one-off conversations as well in the interim. So we did have some more time for Q&A. If anyone on the call has any thoughts, questions, comments about anything you've heard today. Is anyone excited? You can use thumbs up. Is anyone's mind blown?
Mary Beth, it's Matt. I'm definitely interested. I'm just sort of trying to wrap my head around the non-federal portion to kind of get off the ground. Is really where I am, but I'm definitely interested.
That's great. That's great. And that's
we, you know, you asked earlier about if any of us operated E&T, and I know I told you we did. We have a fiscal management relationship with a workforce development board, and they actually carry out all the work. So I'm not exactly sure what they do, but that would be 100% funded E&T grant here in West Virginia. And I know the funding for it has gotten smaller and smaller year after year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, West Virginia does have third-party partners. That's something that they do offer and have seen some real good success with. So I think that's a good thing to know. On the funding, one thing we didn't mention is just it's important, maybe sort of a detail, but there is one federal funding stream, Community Development Block Grants, CDBG dollars. They're federal, but they actually lose their federal identity, and they're considered non-federal funds. So if any of your organizations happen to get those dollars and you utilize it on, you know, workforce development services, they would actually be eligible as if they were non-federal dollars. It's the sort of one outlier that's there. So if it happens to apply to you, that's something to consider, think about.
One other thing I want to make sure I mention before we wrap up here, y'all, is that through the work that we've done under the previous grant, we have created a number of tools and resources already that are available to you here on the SNAP E&T Clearinghouse. They're also available on the NCAP website. And you can go here and access some of these tools that will help you chart out, like, where do I have capacity? Where do I have that kind of magical match of services and funding? And so you could use these tools as well in the interim to kind of figure out if E&T might be a good fit for you. And as I've mentioned several times, if you want to have an individual conversation, we are here to do that with you. Happy to kind of talk through what your funding streams look like and, you know, what possibilities there may be for your agency. If you want to have one of those one-on-one conversations, I want to take a no wrong door approach here. You can fill out the interest form. You can email me directly, and happy to kind of circle the wagons and help get that scheduled for you. So that's what we had prepared for today. Friends at SJI, anything you want to add?
I would just add, we're looking forward to working with you, and you know, it's like they said, there's no such thing as a dumb question. You know, ask whatever you want, whatever you need. You know, we're happy to help.
And don't feel, I mean, I guess the other thing I want to say is that, you know, we have people who go through these program or partnership grants like this and decide that it's not a good fit. But taking the time to figure that out is important, you know, and you learn enough that maybe it's not the right time right now, but next year or the year after, when some non-federal funds appear that you didn't have before, that might change the way you're providing some workforce development programs, then you're all set. You've learned what you need to know to become a third-party provider at that point. So there's no expectation that you become a third-party provider. This is information gathering, and of course we would love that it happens, but there is no expectation that you do. It's an exploration kind of idea to see where it might fit. If it doesn't fit now, maybe it fits in the future. It's really meant to provide, you know, we always joke about SNAP E&T being the best kept secret. You know, in Washington, we were one of the very first states to provide it. All 34 of our community colleges provide SNAP E&T services. We have a lot of CBOs and other third-party providers. And when people from Washington go to other states, they're shocked at how some states have very few providers because the program is so well utilized in Washington. And so we just, you know, the goal is to spread the word and help people understand what it can do. And if now's not the right time, you'll learn what you need to be able to do when it is.
You're here. Thank you so much, Kathy. Thank you. Let's say thank you to Brianna for sharing her perspectives and her brilliance with us. And I want to say thank you to all of you for your time this afternoon. Please reach out if you need anything, and we'll talk soon. Take care, y'all.